So back in 2016, everything changed when PSVR1 came out. This headset was the first gateway entry for many people who already owned a PS4 to jump into virtual reality for the first time at a fairly affordable price. We fast forward 7 years into the future and we're back here once again with the same story going in with a new generation. This is the PSVR2, and honestly, this does the exact same journey for me as I got 7 years back when I picked up the PS1 for the first time. Now, one thing I will say about this headset straight off the bat is if you own a PS5, you'd almost be a fool not to be buying into this. But in today's video, we're going to be diving into all the reasons for why you should probably be picking this up, why you maybe shouldn't pick this up, and of course, a general review. But I didn't want this whole review to be the same bulk standard thing that you've seen from every other creator at this point. I really wanted to work on this to make it something a little bit more personal to you and something that's going to sort of resound with whether you actually pick this thing up or whether you don't. Now, this review as well is going to be based around newcomers coming into VR and veterans. I really wanted to come from both angles on this thing, and trust me when I say I have re-recorded this like 4 times, I've edited this like 3 times, and I've not been happy with the result of this video. So this is sort of an amalgamation of all of those things put into one video to kind of make it a little bit different from everything else you've seen. PlayStation kindly sent me out this headset, which I couldn't be more grateful for. Honestly, if you spoke to me 7 years back when I picked up my PSVR1, I would have been freaking blown away to think that fast forward 7 years and Sony themselves send me out a VR headset. Mind blowing. But one thing I will say about that, which is a massive caveat to all of the thoughts you're probably having currently, no, I am not obligated to say anything. These are my own thoughts, and honestly, them sending me this headset, literally alongside with them sending me this headset, was a informational thing saying just tell them what you want to tell them. It's up to you what you want to do with this review. I could say absolutely negative things the entire way through this. I'm not obligated to say anything. So these are my own thoughts. The only thing that you need to know is that PlayStation did supply me with this. It didn't come out of my budget. So let's dive into some of the specs of this thing, and I do want to say right off the bat that I have played every single experience that the PSVR2 has to offer currently. Amazingly, all the developers have sent me out keys for pretty much every single experience that is out right now, and the ones I didn't, I bought myself, just so that I could experience everything and be able to give you a genuine understanding of why this is awesome. Now let's dive into some specs, and I'm going to tell you why those specs are so freaking awesome as we go through some of the games and experiences that I managed to play on my journey through the PSVR2 so far. Now, the first thing I want to say is about the OLED screens. The OLED screens are freaking eye-wateringly beautiful. The reason they're so beautiful is because they get so damn bright. When you're in Horizon Call of the Mountain and you look up at the sun, you will actually have to squint because it's that freaking bright, dude. I have never experienced anything like that in a VR headset to date. And honestly, for me, that was just such an instant moment of like, wow. That, between that and the color depth and being able to see such vibrance in the headset, and also when you go into darker scenes and the blacks become true blacks, it just sells the experience so deeply. In things like Resident Evil, when you're in a dark forest, it's freaking scary because it feels so damn dark. And one of the positives to that is the gasketing that actually goes around to your face is such a good seal. It completely blocks out all the external light. Massive win from me. The lenses themselves are 2000 by 2040 per eye. This means that we have a really high dense pixel count, making it look freaking stunning. Honestly, it looks freaking gorgeous in this headset. Now, I know probably a few of you are already typing in the comments, but what about the mirror? Listen, we're going to dive into that part in just a second, and we will talk about it, so don't fear and don't think that I'm not going to address the elephant in the room, but we'll get to that part in a little bit. In the headset, we have around 110 degrees view. Now, that's about the same as the Quest if you've ever used a Quest, and far wider than the original PSVR1 if you ever used that headset. So that kind of gives you a bit of a ballpark in where your vision line is going to be. I will say with the PSVR2, if I bring it right close to my face, which is how I like to personally play, unless you're wearing glasses, of course, but then you have space in there to actually be able to deal with wearing glasses in the headset. Also, PS, on a little bit of a note of that, there are companies already making snap-on lenses that work and don't interfere with the eye tracking. So if you are a glasses wearer and you're looking for some solutions sort of like that, then definitely there are options out there. Go and give them a little look. Now, as I said, I like to bring the lenses real close to me, which actually gives me an incredible field of view. I'm going to be honest, I feel so damn immersed in this thing once it's up close to my eyes. I kind of forget about any loss of vision, and it just feels just about right to me. I feel like they hit the sweet spot with 110 degrees of field of view. Now, how is this headset tracked? Well, it is tracked in a similar way to many other headsets of access point, which is inside out tracking. It has 4 cameras on the actual headset itself, then it has IR trackers over the controllers, allowing the headset to track those controllers. This makes for a very freeing experience, and honestly I absolutely love it because you don't have to have any stinky cameras around or any lighthouse tracking or anything like that. It's all handled within the headset itself. Very nice, so glad to see this be the case. It was one of the biggest downfalls for the PSVR 1 was having it light tracked. Ugh, it just didn't work. Now to dive into some of the interesting specs about this headset, some of the probably the biggest highlights in my opinion, before we even speak about the controllers, which are a huge highlight in my opinion. But nonetheless, in the headset itself, we now have haptic feedback, which I gotta be honest, I was very skeptical of right up until the point I used this thing. Like from the second you boot it up and it vibrates on your head and you're like, oh, okay, that's really cool. I like that. And then you get into a game and that's when everything unifies between the haptics and the controllers themselves, and then the haptics and the headset itself. When it's done so right, to the point where you almost don't even notice it. Now that's when the true magics of haptics are really taking place, in my opinion, is when you're not even picking up on the fact that, oh, something's vibrating on me. All you're thinking about is like the massive tall neck stomping the grounds near you, and you can feel those vibrations in your body. It just really tricks you into feeling even more immersed into the situation than possible before. So absolutely, I backtrack. It is not a gimmick. That thing is actually something I want to see implemented into all VR headsets moving forward. Next up would be eye tracking. Now eye tracking is freaking amazing. I cannot tell you just how amazing the eye tracking experience has been for me so far. Eye tracked foveated rendering is freaking mind-blowing, dude. In games like Horizon Call of the Mountain and Resident Evil, I believe, uses them, and a few other titles, then when you're looking around, that's the highest point that's rendered, so exactly where you're looking, and it works like freaking magic. So much like magic that you cannot fool this thing. I've tried, like, looking left and right, trying to find it, trying to see if I can find how this thing's working. Honestly, it's like freaking magic. So it actually tracks your eye, renders the most beautiful part where you're looking, and then the rest foveates out into a slightly lower resolution because you don't need to see it, which is just magic. It really allows games to look freaking stunning, and honestly, this in itself is freaking amazing. Now, last up is controllers. Controllers, really, these are the magic sauce on the whole experience. Now, while they are a bit of a strange looking controller, they do the job well, in my opinion, unless you have giant hands, which I have heard from some people that having bigger hands can be a little bit more uncomfortable to try and reach some of the controls on these things. Me personally, I think I have big hands, but nonetheless, they fit in there perfectly for me. So do be a little bit aware though, if you do have giant paws, then you might have to hold the controller slightly different. I don't really know what the solution is to that, but just be aware that it is a thing, but not enough to detract you from being able to play the headset itself, so don't worry. But the controllers are freaking next level. We have haptics. Oh, such good haptics in those controllers that just feel amazing when you're shooting guns and stuff. But the icing on the cake is the adaptive triggers here. This is what wins the freaking show. The adaptive triggers change this entirely. Now, I love the adaptive triggers being on my regular controller, but my goodness, when you're in VR and you feel the difference in the trigger pulls in things like Star Wars Galaxy from the Edge, when you can really feel the difference in each gun that you're firing, it just feels phenomenal. So that is the selling point for me with these controllers, is those adaptive triggers. Once again, this is like 3 things that the PSVR 2 has done that I want to see unified across every VR headset moving forward. Adaptive triggers, or a version of for the different platforms, would be a must for me in the future. Eye tracking, a must in the future, and head haptics, definitely a must for the future. I would love to see things like this implemented into, say, like the Quest 3 when it comes out. Will it happen? I don't think it will, but it should happen, and I want these to become the new normal. Mirror. Now, man, I feel like everyone learned a new word over the last couple of weeks. I know some of you are going to absolutely slay me in the comments for saying this. I don't really see it. I'm sorry, I don't really see it. I'm aware that it's a thing, and I am aware that if I really look for it, then I can see it. But I'm also aware that other people are struggling with this more than others, and man, my condolences to you, because if you can't get past it, I understand that, and maybe that could really ruin your experience. For me personally, I don't think it affects me even at all. The way I kind of view the mirror in this headset is similar to screen door effect that we used to have in older VR headsets, things like the OG Vive headsets and stuff like that. Screen door used to be very prevalent and you could see it if you were looking for it. But the reality of the situation is literally 10 seconds after you put the headset on for the first time, you've gone, oh, I see that. Then you're in an immersive experience and you no longer see it because you're not looking for it, you're immersed in the experience. Now, I feel like this is the part that a lot of people are missing, especially people that haven't actually used the headset itself. They kind of jump in on a hype train to say, oh, look, this thing's kind of terrible. And honestly, it's not. That's not the case whatsoever. In fact, I've been more visually immersed into this headset than I have been in virtually anything else I've ever played. On top of that, I think this has some of the sharpest visuals I've ever seen in a VR headset. So I don't think we need to keep harping on about this. Yes, mirror is present. It is unfortunately a defect of OLED panels in the sense that the way the pixels are arranged, it makes it happen. It's an unfortunate part of it. But what does the OLED give us instead of that? Visually bright images, vibrant, gorgeous colors, a really freaking stunningly sharp image. So I'll take the freaking little bit of mirror if you really want to look for it. It's definitely present, but does it affect me? Absolutely not. I gotta say, for me personally, I've looked at it and I've tried really hard to be present and notice it, but honestly, the games are so good, I just don't notice it after 5 minutes. If you're thinking, oh my god, all I've heard about is mirror, please look past it. Just don't be silly and don't just listen to the clickbaity titles that you've been seeing a lot recently about it, and maybe just focus on the fact that the headset itself will give you an experience unlike anything else. Now, the big question that we're probably asking at the end of this, should I be buying this, Rhys? Well, honest opinions, yes. If you own a PS5, this is a no-brainer for you. If you've never been into virtual reality before, this is a purchase that I just 100% recommend to you. Get into VR. Honestly, you will thank me later. I guarantee it. In fact, if you do end up buying one and you're ready to thank me later, come back to this video, drop it in the comments. And I would love to see the reactions to your first experience in VR. I just can't recommend this enough. Now, of course, this is a steep asking price to get in. If you don't already own a PS5, that's, you know, it becomes around the sort of like just over $1,000 mark to be able to buy in on this thing, and that is expensive when you have options like the Quest 2 for really like £300 to £400/dollars. So yeah, I totally get it. This is not the cheapest headset to be buying into, and in the way that things are currently, I get it. We don't all have money that we just want to splash on things. If you're looking for really one of the best experiences, then it's worth the money. It's the kind of money that if you have in your wallet and you're ready to spend it, then you will not regret spending it. So let me put it that way to you. Now, should you go out and rush and buy this if you have a sort of Quest 2 already or an Index or anything like that? Well, listen, if you have the expendable cash and you want the best experience, absolutely yes. But if you don't, you're not missing out on much other than the exclusives and of course some of the other cool things that I've spoken about across this video. So don't feel like you must have to rush out and buy this thing right now because you're missing out. The only thing you're missing out currently is exclusives and of course all the other benefits that I've spoken about. But if you're already in VR and enjoying yourself, then you're in VR and you're enjoying yourself, and I'm just glad to have you be part of the VR family. Should this be something you aspire to buy in the future? Yes, I think so. Yeah, when you have the budget available, I think it's one to pick up. I will be continuing to cover this headset and I will continue to support this headset right the way through its life, just the same way that I did with the PSVR 1. And do you know why that'll be? It's probably going to be because the best goddamn games come for this thing. The exclusives with PlayStation have always been something that's amazing. And one of the things that I love the most about PlayStation owning this headset is they're a gaming company, okay? Now, not many other headsets are owned by companies that just care about games. Probably the closest we've ever had would be the Index, and the reason I say that is because we got Half-Life Alyx from Valve, and you know, that's a game that's freaking amazing. But I feel like we're already having that replicated in things like Call of the Mountain coming out, and all the other things that we've had coming out across on this headset. So honestly, yeah, I think that we are lucky to have a games company producing a headset like this, where the focus isn't about stealing your data, it's more about giving you the best experiences, and that being their shtick. So enough said. Anyway, I will say, don't worry, I'm still going to be continuing to support my Quest and all the other platforms that ever come out on this, because I love VR as a whole. I couldn't care less which headset you're in. As long as you're in a headset enjoying yourself, you're winning and you're living your best life. So man, I hope this review has helped a little bit with you. Like I say, I have tried to record this a few different ways, and this felt the most natural to me, to be able to just sit down and express why I thought this thing is freaking awesome, while still hitting all of the calling points out there, which is like specs and experiences and stuff, but just delivered to you in a slightly different way. If you enjoyed this, please do smash like. If you know someone else who's sort of interested in picking one up, ping them over this video and I'm sure it will help them along the way. Let me know in the comments down below what your first experience has been on the PSVR2, if you own one, or what you're planning on buying. I will say, as one short caveat, if you're going into VR for the first time, my PC just fell asleep. If you're going into VR for the first time, pick wisely with the games that you pick, as you don't want to go into something too extreme, as it might make you feel a bit rough.